欢迎收看《四海一家台湾》。Welcome to Four Seas One Family Taiwan. My name is James. 我是 Jimmy. Okay, I got to turn this noise off because this is really becoming a pain. How you doing, Earl? Thank you. I got to turn off. Let me turn off this my stuff in the background here. Okay, I'm here. Let me turn up some stuff here and talk to you guys about the topic I would like to cover. And I'd like to thank Randy for sending your people, send everybody over here. And I'm aware that some people in North America may be having a hard time to stay awake. Earl, what part of the globe are you in? Are you in North America, United States, Canada, something like that? I had someone named Nicole, something like that. I think he's in Macau. Left me a message on the site of my very last video. I do a lot of videos here. I'm involved with the Taiwan Podcast Network here. I do another show that focuses on life here in Taiwan called Taiwan Blend. I just started up, and I have 21 websites I got to monitor, and I just started my Four Seas One Family Taiwan show, which I do, and sometimes in Chinese. But thanks for being here, people. I want to talk a little bit about why mainland China is doing the things that it's doing right now, and especially particularly focusing on the land acquisition it's making, and especially in smaller nations or weaker nations, less financially endowed nations. Why? Because China is going through a crisis right now. I'm also trying to eat here. So once again, like I said, it's 3:50 here p.m. It's 15:50 here p.m. Taiwan time. So if you're in New York City, it's like 3:00 in the morning. So let me bounce on. Now I usually don't do live streams here on YouTube. Okay, and right now I'm not in my home studio. I'm not in my office studio. I'm in my home studio. That's why you see some of these edges here. I got a little piece of cloth in the back. And I prefer to broadcast from my office because I'm a little bit more equipped to be able to show you slides or play videos within my stream. And I usually do not use StreamYard. I usually stream in by other methods. So I'm going to be talking about something that most people, especially in the Western world, may not have even thought about or even be aware of. And it may change your perceptions about a little bit about what's happening in China. And also in the future, I hope to be able to talk about something else. And that is what Randy was talking a little bit about, and it's how America is really going through its own state of a cultural revolution. Now, we probably heard in school that China went through some horrendous episodes in their history. We know things about, say, the Boxer Rebellion, the Great Leap Forward, but I'm going to talk about something that would probably be more popular, or at least popular in the minds of people in the West, or based on the items that people in our countries, Western countries, have chose to constantly perpetuate to ourselves about China, or even any place else beyond our home nation. And some of it has to do with propaganda or building a perception about other people as well as themselves. So let me go into it. Oh, and also I should mention that I was partly educated in China. I do speak Mandarin. I read. I'm fluent in whatever. So if you have any, how you doing, Ann? Hi, Ann. How you doing, Ann? And if you have any questions, type it down over in the corner here. And if you want to type in Chinese, if you're Chinese, 如果你是华人的话，你要用中文跟我沟通的话，你在这边打中文的话，我帮他翻译，然后我会用英文、中文回答你。And 如果你有任何一个问题，你再跟我讲好吗 ？OK， 我可以帮助你。但是如果我讲的太快，请你原谅我好不好？我的习惯你知道，不管我用什么语言，都是讲的很快。如果我的中文错了，我的用词不对的话，你可以纠正我，我不会生气。Okay, so let me continue. Now, let me see what else I can say about myself. Yes, I'm also a teacher, and I have a media background. I educated partly in China, and I would just say partly a little bit, because I was an exchange student, and I studied in China primarily the language and Chinese history. In the United States, my background is primarily media, and I'm more like a social psychologist. So let me talk a little bit about why China is trying its best to make all these big land acquisitions. And they are actually doing it for a reason that, well, is quite serious. Now I'm going to open up a document here, and this document is nothing big or important, but it's just something that maybe I can use to keep my talking points in order. Like, once again, if you have anything you would like to ask, you know, just go ahead and ask it, and just remember to be polite. Don't worry, I can take heat. And once again, I would like to thank Brother Randy out there in Shanghai for inviting his followers over here to listen to my little rant. Now, I'm not going to rant too long because I don't want to bore people. Yeah, Earl, I've been here for 30 something years here in Taiwan, from the South Bronx, Fort Apache. And I've done a lot of things in Fort Apache. Hold on, let me open up another document here. Okay, let me open up another. I'm dealing with a lot of documents that I placed in the cloud. Please forgive me. And once again, if you have any questions, please bring it up, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, here we go. Okay. I'll just cover this particular topic. Once again, why China is making all these land acquisitions, and why, and what things that maybe people in the West are not aware of. And 如果你有一个问题，你跟我讲，如果你讲太快的话，你可以告诉我慢一点，然后我会纠正我自己。Okay? Huh? I just joined the army when you got to Taiwan. Well, I can tell you something else, Earl, about that situation, because I have something in what they call in Chinese 缘分 with Taiwan and its people. And being an African American puts me in a unique situation to express things from my point of view, because not many people out here have personal connections or contacts or relationships as far as personal friends type with African Americans, especially from New York. There are Africans out here and stuff like that, but in this society, it seems like there's a type of separation between different kinds of Black people, and I can talk about that at another time, or in different topics. And if you're interested in it, let me know. I'll set a date, and I'll set aside an hour or two to talk about that. So let me continue with this topic I would like to present to you now. Now, let me explain that China has always presented the view that it has and never will be, interested in global expansion the way many Western nations used, like, for example, their military and economic power to conquer and colonize many parts of the world. However, over the past 25 years, China has been frantically expanding its property acquisitions overseas. Okay. Now, this is no big secret, right? Now, they remember they said they're not interested in global expansion. But if you look at it over the past 25 years, especially, really more like 30 years since Deng Xiaoping and Nixon opened up their agreement, and Kissinger started doing some magical things behind the scenes, which may not have been all ethical. China has been moving in this particular direction, and this is not something that they just started while or after the opening of how would you say China to the West. How you doing, Milka Canada? I'm sorry, I forgot the pronunciation wrongs. I'm sorry, please forgive me. But like I said, however, over the past 25 years, China has been frantically expanding their overseas acquisitions, right? Now, why is that? So in this case, they are doing exactly what they said they weren't interested in doing. Okay? Now, let's go back a little bit. When the West kind of like came up on this latest wave of opening up China, and remember, I'm saying the latest wave of opening up China because countries like Britain has tried to open up China many, many times before. But hold on, what does it mean to open up China or even any other nation? But I'm going to particularly focus on China or this region. It's all about money. It's all about money disguised as what? Freeing these people, teaching them the religion, please. That's nothing but a mask, a facade. Oh, we want to, how would you say? Maybe you're talking from a position of a Jesuits. We want to free these people from their downtrodden lifestyle for the Queen. Oh, please. Tokapaikia. You know, whose head is broken? What I mean is, it's all about money. Money talks, and you know the other stuff walks. So they're building up a financial monopoly overseas because their local population was probably too poor to help them achieve the types of financial alternatives or goals they're trying to reach. So they look overseas. Smart move. So they went over to China to get resources. Actually, I'm not going to use the word get, to take. So it's disguised in good needs. Maybe today it's disguised in foundations or other things like that, but just keep moving. Once again, if you have any questions, put it down and I'll do my best to answer it. If I can't answer it today, I'll pick another time, most likely another time like next week or during the week about this time. So let me continue. And please forgive me if the lighting and sound is not that great. I can also later broadcast from my office studio, which is better equipped. So let me continue. So if you look in the past of how Britain actually forced people in China on drugs, you probably heard about the Opium War. And, that's something bad because Britain wanted just to get enough of financial resources from China, whether it's tea or primarily gold, because they forced the Chinese to pay for these opiums in gold. We also know about the situation that's now taking place in Hong Kong. Now, I'm not going to go into that either because that opens up a different can of worms. And it will take me more than just an hour to talk about that because, like Randy says, you need receipts. I got historical receipts, dates, and if you don't agree with me, please come with your receipts or don't talk anything. Don't say anything. Okay? And if you say something that you are not sure is correct, let me know and we be honest about our discussions. If not, go someplace else where you can build up your own cognitive dissidence. So let me continue here. Britain basically forced China into a situation where they had to lease Hong Kong for a certain amount of years. And now there's a lot of noise being made about the return of Hong Kong to China. But actually, Hong Kong has always been China. A lot of people in the West are not aware that in the early 60s, most Hong Kongese wanted well, I would say before the 1960s, I would just say, I would say actually before about 1958, 1959, most Hong Kongese wanted Britain the heck out of Hong Kong. That's right. Now, maybe many of you in the West don't know a lot about the history of Hong Kong and what took place there before Britain used its power, military, whatever, right? Prowess to, I'll use the word occupy, or you want to call it a better word, rent, lease Hong Kong. It was not that friendly. Most Hong Kongese at that time, about 1958, 1959, wanted the Britons out because they felt they were Chinese. And if go back in history, you must understand why Hong Kongese at that time felt that way. Now, if I'm going to get into that, I'll take a long time, but let me continue. Hong Kong became the financial center of Asia. Many companies moved there because, that was a way to get things done. Nicholson, I'll get back to you in a few minutes because you're in Macau, which your time, I think about an hour different from me, hour and a half. And let me continue here. Now, so many people became prosperous. First, the overseas foreign expat community came in, established their foothold, economic might, trading in and out of Asia, getting cheap labor and stuff like that. But then the Hong Kong nationals quickly rose up, gained a financial prowess, knew how to get stuff done cheaply once China agreed to come back after the Cultural Revolution to the centerfold of the economic global union of the world, if you want to call it that. Now, let me continue. Mainland Chinese then started building a foothold within Hong Kong also, and was using it in some cases to circumvent some restrictions that was on the mainland, but also were able to use to their advantage the laws and legal procedures in Hong Kong to further expand their markets globally. Now, I'm not talking about the present day companies that are in the news lately, like the company that owns TikTok, ByteTrend, or Transcend, the company behind other things that's coming out of China that are obligated to have a very close relation and follow the rules and regulations based on a CCP government. We're not going to talk about that either. Because remember, I want to talk about a little bit of why China has become more interested in the global expansion of, overseas property when it says it never was, interested in. Like it kind of said, Hong Kong has been there, have been taken over and ruled by a handful of nations over the years. You're right. Okay. But, I'm talking about latest, the big boy, the UK. Very ethnically, culturally diverse group. Yes, but they're ethnically diverse from the population primarily from within southern China, Guangzhou. Because you probably heard the words about triads, okay? When you understand a little bit more about the rising or the beginning of the triads, you get to understand some of the sorts of control and separations that happen within Hong Kong. And that's a whole nother dictionary of discussion that I can probably get into later. So let me go back what you said. You said very ethnically and culturally diverse group. Bruce Lee himself was of mixed heritage himself. Yes, many people don't understand that Bruce Lee, Li Xiaolong, had about 3 different names. Okay, and I can do another show about Li Xiaolong, Bruce Lee. And when I started personally to dig into Bruce Lee, I found out that he was a very, some cases utopian, but also quite interesting person because he was basically studied philosophy. He was a philosopher and heck of a partier. But I am fortunate enough to have met people who have known him, and I'm friends with one of the students of Bruce Lee's teacher. You probably know who I'm talking about. His brother is in Taiwan, and he's teaches a Canadian friend of mine who's also a Wing Chun teacher. One of the most dangerous guys I've known here. I know here in Taiwan, and one of the nicest guys I know. That's right, Li Xiaolong. That's right. Triads all had to flee in Hong Kong after the 1950s. They didn't really flee. They just went undercover. They didn't flee. They just went undercover. And they got into so-called legitimate business. Because we know drugs came in and out of Hong Kong all the time. They got into legitimate business. It's called illegal activities and also politics. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but we can just move around. Let me continue. So remember I said that before the 1960s, many Hong Kongese were not interested in becoming part of Europe, and they wanted to get the Europeans out. Excuse me for a second, guys. I got to kill the mic here for a second. I'm getting some text here. 1 second. I got to communicate with somebody here, and I got to switch over to another browser. So please bear with me. I'm multitasking here. One second. I hope the computer doesn't crash, but let me answer this. I have to have somebody pick up something from here. Hold on. Please forgive. I'm sorry. One second. Somebody's going to get by here. I just want to know their ETA. Estimated time of arrival. So I got about 5. I got 5 things open, and I'm monitoring on one other device. So if you're in YouTube right now and you want to send me something, I can answer you on different devices. So let me continue here. And like I said, this is the third time I'm going to say this. About the 1960s, before a lot of Hong Kongese, which had very close ties, whether because of historical triad reasons with China, wanted the British government or people out, but they still wanted to keep their financial economic advantage or loggerheads as a very important port or gateway to the world. Now, more and more Hong Kongese became educated in both the UK and the United States, and picked up a few habits that, kind of Western habits they may pick up, and brought it back to Hong Kong. Some of these attitudes may be some of the things that we were taught when I say we, those Americans or Europeans growing up in the West, whether they carried with them the idea of what democracy is. No, I would rather say what democracy is supposed to be, and brought it back to Hong Kong. And it was installed on purpose in a lot of cases, subconsciously in some, in the population of the Hong Kongese in the early 60s. Now, over time, of course, especially after the reopening of China, the whole idea of democracy, rights, human protection, human rights, other types of equalities became more prevalent and began to take on a bigger bite in Hong Kong. That's what we're seeing today with all these protests. Right or wrong, I'm not going to talk about that now because that opens up a whole different discussion and involves some things that friend Randy in Shanghai didn't want to get into. And someone asked him in the chat, does he want to talk about the shills in China? That opens up a different discussion, and you're not going to finish that. But let me continue. So that's why you hear, especially in the Western media, that's another story too, all of the news against how Hong Kongese really despise being controlled and having certain laws pushed upon them and took away their rights and make them more susceptible to even saying any type of open opposition towards China. Okay? Sounds like Sun Yat-sen in the early 1900s, he brought a lot of ideas back to China. That's right. Remember, Sun Yat-sen also was educated partly in Japan. Okay? You're absolutely right. And that also added to the chemistry. And remember, I should add this as a caveat that both mainland China and the government here in Taiwan, they both see Dr. Sun Yat-sen, Sun Zhongshan, as a cultural icon in their not political development, at least cultural development. Okay, so let me continue. Boy, I can really talk a lot about the relationships between Taiwan and mainland China. And once again, let me back up because my YouTube channel here is called 4Cs1 Family. Basically, I talk about how people who are expats or immigrants abroad, expats, immigrants, or even migrants in some cases abroad, adapt to their life living overseas. But because of the current situations that's now taking, what has been propelled in front of everyone in every part of the world is the relationship between the West or the United States and China. So I'm focusing a little bit more on that. Thank you very much. Very true. Now, let me continue. So you get these young political advocates out of Hong Kong who are fighting for something they believe. Their father or grandparents were a little bit different because they wanted Hong Kong to go back to the motherland. Now, this brings me to today. Now, remember, what did I just say? I said that over the past 25, 30 years or so, China has been frantically, and I mean frantically trying to expand its overseas land acquisitions. Now, like I said before, China said that it was not interested in global expansion like the way Western nations, the way they use their military and financial prowess to just go to a country, say, we're coming over here to teach you our religion, which makes you more subservient to some of our, how would you say, hidden motives. I mean, subservient to some of our words are saying, to get you programmed in a way that will allow us to have you look at the left hand while the right hand is taken from you. Subversive action, I guess. And we doing this in the name of the religion or the name of the queen now, please. Now, once again, I already mentioned the Opium Wars and how populations of Chinese was forced into becoming addicted addicts and paying gold, in fact, to Britain to get what they want, which once again allowed them to use the other hand to take Hong Kong or lock them down. Okay, let me continue. Now, China has a very interesting problem. You know, many Western nations got into or focused so much in trying to build a market in China just because the amount of population China has, and also the dream of being able to teach China to be more like us. They wish that China can be more like Western nations. When the truth is, sometimes you have to be very careful what you wish for. Because China has learned not only to understand and comprehend what you wanted to teach them, but now they have gotten even better. They have learned that because of their past experiences, they had to limit Western nations' access to their local population. This is because they've been picked on a lot. Okay? That's why you don't see certain you don't see YouTube in China legally. They have to go over the Great Wall, Banqiang. That's why you don't see Twitter in China, because they are saying that these type of influences are contaminating the minds of people in China. Okay, that's why you don't see certain big software and hardware companies being able to control too much in China. In fact, many overseas companies working in China are really actually not totally owned by them. Well, let me read a note here. Okay, let me continue. My plans has been disrupted here. Okay, so let's see, I lost track here. Yeah. So China has learned how to do things better than a lot of Western nations. In fact, China has learned how to use many laws in Western nations to propagate their focused plan. For example, I already mentioned many, for example, here on YouTube, or I already said Twitter, or with these other Western platforms that in a lot of cases do hypothesize some social and political icons or certain political or social stance that China is not really interested in building, and are very suspicious too, because of its past interactions with foreign nations that really destroyed them in a lot of cases, that caused them to make mistakes. Now, I'm not going to talk about China's mistakes that they really set upon themselves. That's a whole different program, because there's so many things you can talk about. But let me continue now. China is going through something that is, I guess most people in the West are not even thinking about, because we were taught that China has a large amount of people, a large population, a diverse amount of culture and language, or all this, arts and sciences, and obedience to elders and all that stuff. We've put them in a, how would you say, back in the past, in these, they were ideologized in many cases. You see people like Bruce Lee doing their thing, Chen Long, Jackie Chan, guys like that. We admired them, Westerns. We learned about Chinese culture, how humble they're supposed to be, and all this stuff. Well, that was not exactly true. So to continue now, China's population is facing a very big problem right now. As China developed more into the Western sphere, now remember, I'm still not talking about how China is using Western power to achieve their goals, and also how China is limiting its access, or its access of the Chinese people to certain elements of Western cultures. But let me go back into the land acquisition. Wait a minute. Let me back up a little bit and mention that a little bit. I want you to think about situations where China has gotten trouble overseas and trying to use laws available to people in Western nations to fight, or to say they were treated unfairly based on the overseas Western countries' law. These laws do not apply to foreign nationals in China. In other words, Chinese companies, who we know are not totally privately owned, have more rights overseas and legal rights in court in cases of, say, copyright infringements or stuff like that than they do back in their home nation. Now, this can be a whole different topic too. And I really do like to focus on that one day. But let me continue to this land acquisition China is making. China's, when China got more involved in the financial circle of the world, because many people in China to become wealthy beyond beliefs. I mean, I can name at least two or three people I know who bought $3 million US $1 million homes in southern China, Guangzhou, Dongguan, places like that. Mao used to secretly watch Bruce Lee movies because his family was pro Hong Kong. He banned his movies in the mainstream. There's something else you should know that maybe you don't know. If you really search in the background of Mao's family and the former muscle man here in Taiwan, you'll find out they're related by family in some way. But that's another topic. But let me continue. Wow, I'm always getting pulled off in different directions. It's called multitasking. That's why I got all these windows open. But let me continue. You see, the current population in China, especially the young kids, are finding it very difficult, especially because of more so of this U.S. trade war or whatever, to afford to raise a family. Now, remember, China had that one-child policy thing because the population was just too big and not enough of food to go around. So the government did some draconian muscle pull and said, okay, one child, guys. Yeah, there's some people that said that minorities were not all subjugated to this rule. But what happens was, yes, these laws took an effect, but also you got to remember that the Asian cultures and China in particular, they have more family preference for giving birth to male children to carry on the family name. And female infanticide went on like, I mean, rapid, like craziness. Okay. There were cases of men marrying women, and if they had keep having girls, the guy would divorce the mother to try to marry somebody else to have a male. And straight up, female infanticide is, they'll go to see the kid, and they'll just dig a hole and throw the baby in a hole and just cover the poor little girl up. It happened. Most Asian countries, maybe a lot less so now, prefer to have male offspring to carry on the family name. Now, what has happened over time, especially in the past 30 years in China? Quite a few Chinese went overseas to get educated. Quite a few Chinese females went overseas and got educated. They picked up some habits. They became more independent and didn't find that they really needed a man to help them live a good life. Some of them married Westerners. We can probably guess which Westerners they probably chose to have married first, but moving right along. But some of them decided that, to go into business. They became very, very affluent, good. They gained independence. Like I said, some stayed overseas and fell in love with someone locally, became an overseas citizen. The other thing is some of those who went back to China still had embedded in their minds the things about what is women's rights and stuff like that. Then a lot of them said, well, I'm going to build my career first. So that delays, I'm talking about across the whole population of China, the birth rate. Okay? The birth rate. And remember, I'm talking about before China about 2 or 3 years ago actually abolished the one-child policy. Now let's continue. The next thing that happened, or we see happening, is that China's becoming an aging population. China has to worry about who's going to pay for social services, education, military upkeeping and research Who's going to pay for that? When people are retiring, it has to fall on the young. Today, the young people in China, most of them cannot afford to buy a house. Oh, no, I should not say house. I would say apartment. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I just say a room. Prices of things in China has gone up crazily in the big cities. They have these cities now broken up in tiers, classified groups, which I'm aware of, but not totally clear about the local laws because I'm not on the ground in China right now. But let me continue. Milka kind of said, I have colleagues in China who aren't legal because they were the second child before the first. Yes, that is so. Yes, that's right. Some people had children off the books, man. That's right. They had kids off the books and they had to hide them. But let me continue. See, now you're gonna get me off track, man. Okay, let me continue. Now, we are seeing China starting to worry about this. Now, let's add on to another fact. When your country has a large population, you have to feed them. If you look at China on a map, look at China on a Google map, look at how much arable land they have. It's located where? Right around the area of a place called Wuhan. Wuhan has a lot of, how would you say, naming points in Chinese history, even related to Taiwan, military. Where do all the rivers kind of like congregate near? Wuhan. Where are some of the major research institutes open or located? The research on drugs, Wuhan. But let me not go into that because I'm opening up countless amount of worms here. If you're interested, let me know. Now, let me continue. So China has to think about, it now has an aging population. Young folks are having children at a later age, or maybe not at all. They have an acronym for it. Not NIC, not having children. I'll look it up later. Where young people just building up their financial prowess, but not having kids. Now the Chinese government is thinking about ways to have people who do not have children pay higher taxes. Imagine that. You have to pay more taxes because you don't have a kid. That sucks. And that's not going to hit the society well at all, especially the younger population, many of who have more contact with information, more interactions with people who have been overseas, more access to certain written documents that probably was snuck in. And some of them are able to use a VPN to flip over that Great Wall and to see how the people on the other side are living. But this is a big problem. So China, in this situation, has to expand. Now, they have this Belt and Road Initiative. You probably heard about Idailu, where they're trying to make connections that will make the independent to get resources in and out of China. Once again, China says it's not interested in overseas land acquisition, but China has been known, especially in cases when dealing with countries in Africa, they walk into a country and say, okay, you would like to have, you need money to build a bridge or a school, whatever, we'll loan you money. Okay, you borrowed us, you borrow the money from us, we'll send in our Chinese workers to build them for you. Now, this brings up another question because a lot of Chinese companies or government-sponsored companies that have went to places, especially in Africa, to build some kind of infrastructure, there's many problems that come out of that. Maybe I can invite somebody on to talk about that. The quality of the construction is bad. The Chinese are bringing in their own labor force, not building up the local population's financial ability. That's a whole different thing. This is bad. And in some cases, many of the African nations and others borrow capital from Chinese-sponsored CCP government sources at extremely high interest rates and later become unable to repay the loans. And we know the amount of corruption that happens a lot in these small and poor nations. We know about the nepotism. So in the end, what kind of deals can these smaller countries do? When their corrupt officials, a lot of them took the money and ran. China says, well, went there, no problem. How about you give us access to this port for 100 years? Or you just give us this piece of land forever. This is what's happening. This is called land acquisitions. Not the same way as Western nations did it, because they didn't have to use their military. You see, Western powers came in with so much gunpowder, boom and bang, that they bogarted their way in, but not China. They figured how to use another country's legal institution, laws, and facilities to obtain their objective. Now, you probably know something by somebody called Lao Tzu, or not Lao Tzu, but The Art of War, 孙子兵法. How to use tactics without using military, how to obtain a strategic goal without using military power, without using war. This is what China is doing and has already done countless numbers of times. Now, hold on, let me look at the comments here and see what's happening down here. I've seen a slogan a few years ago, Wuhan, the Chicago of China. Well, it sure is now. Nicholson says, lots of scholars for Africans. I know many in China. Angles, yeah, great friends. Yeah, East Africa need to watch deals they make and the land they sell to China. So in China eyes, when they see a country wanting loans, to them they're like, just purchase this. Because we know the nation's corrupt officials who are helping us get these contractual agreements made, they're going to jet. And they can take our land. We can take their land legally. It looks good on paper. The United States knows what's going on. Europe knows what's going on, but most people have no damn idea what's going on. And people like me feel that it's time to put it out there. And we have foreign nationals in China that they have developed something that I called, or something that Gil Scott Herring once called, selective amnesia. So let me continue. So what I'm saying is, China has these two issues. An aging population. Who's going to pay for the social infrastructures, social services, educations, military maintenance and research for China when its population is aging, when its younger population are finding it hard to survive and delaying marriage or giving birth to children? China's population per capita, per percentage of birth, is the lowest in, I think, right now than any other country. I think it's something like 1.2 per thousand or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll look it up. I got to remember to look it up, though. But let me continue. The next thing is arable land in China for a growing population. There are still a lot of people in China who are not making $100 a month. Okay, what we see in the news is the beautiful tier 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever cities, and they are beautiful. They look good. I cannot say much about the construction practices there at the particular time, but when I lived in China, I had to go back there for a month to work. Construction was not good. It looked good on the outside, magnificent, but when you look at the cracks on the walls, you see they use a lot of this silicone to make things nice and neat and stuff like that. Yeah, you must read Sun Tzu, Sun Tzu Bing Fa, The Art of War. Yeah, the revolution might not be televised. Hey, right now, let me tell you, the revolution is being televised. I left a note in my Facebook page about an hour ago. China has gone through its cultural revolution. And we all know the demise, the results of that. Wasn't too cool, huh? So much culture was destroyed, so much was lost. So many lives were needlessly taken. The United States, or the Western cultures, Western nations in general, but especially the United States, is going through their cultural revolution. And it includes so many tiny little bits of other things, when in fact, things like the Black Lives Matter has been usurped. I know some people don't want to hear this, but this is true. And want to talk more about that, I can talk about the elements that have 盗用, usurped the BLM movement, which I believe in BLM, but I see it has been usurped. But let me continue. And remember, like Randy likes to say, receipts. I have receipts because I do research before I talk. I have classmates, Chinese classmates in China who let me know those things. Will I call it Marxist, Nicholson? Not exactly. And for why, I can. I watch CCTV in China. They don't televise anything. I wonder why. 怪不得. Okay, let me continue. You guys have any questions, let me know. Okay. 如果你有任何一个问题，你可以跟我讲，你可以用中文打字。我的简体字可能忘记很多，但是用繁体字我都可以翻译，然后我可以用英文或者中文回答。So, I just said if you are a Chinese speaker, if you want to type Chinese down here, I'll do my best to translate it and answer your questions. Okay, let's move right along. So, China forged agreements with many small or poor nations looking to acquire. These small nations are looking to acquire loans or funds or subsidies to upgrade their social services, national infrastructure, right? And China offered to give these nations loans, and sometimes at crazy, interest rates. 谢谢你。你会讲中文吗？这是哪个人？你是什么人？说的不错啊。你是哪里人啊？ Where are you coming from? 因为你用简体字，我以为你应该在中国大陆，对不对？如果你是大陆人，我跟你讲，我不是不喜欢大陆人，就是说他的政策我无法同意吧。但是这个不关我的事，现在，因为我现在在讲不一样的题目。OK， 我继续讲，用英文讲，因为大部分听众现在都是听不懂中文。感谢。Okay, let me continue now. So they are in a position where they have to worry about an aging population, which would lower their amount of financial resources even as soon as 2025. Then they have to worry about the amount of arable land they have that in some cases is contaminated or has been stripped away from a lot of materials to develop their economic infrastructures for becoming an export country for many globally known companies. 再见. Now, Mika, 再见, huh? See you later, man. Oh, great. Chinese always streams. Gotta run. Okay. Peace. Okay. 保护自己。戴口罩. Wear your mask, dude. Okay. Continue. Now, so this is why it's under great stress to try to make overseas land acquisitions that probably would allow some people in their population to either immigrate to, find financial opportunities in, especially in the overseas financial market. The next thing is to be able to learn to use legal laws overseas to protect themselves. Now, this is where Western nations, especially the United States, had really put their foot in their mouth. Where China has blocked many foreign nations for having to have access to resources within China, Western nations has allowed China to go crazy. Now, just think about this. How many Western companies, Western-owned companies have, for example, foreign nationals as CEOs or, the big shots that run the company? Quite a few Western companies. We can talk about companies like Yahoo, Microsoft. We can name too many. But can you name any Chinese company that has a foreign CEO? I'm not talking about a branch. Can you tell me a Chinese company within China that has a foreign national CEO? Do you think that's by chance or by mistake? Do you think it just has to do with the language and cultural differences? No. Now, I can talk about Japanese companies, Nissan. Let's not talk about Nissan. They have another problem that had foreign nationals as CEOs or people of pretty much high level management positions. You don't see that in China, huh? Why? If I'm not mistaken, if you have a company in China with over 100 employees, you have to have a government representative in your country to make sure you follow the right road. Right? You must. And you're not in the United States, we don't have to do that. I'm not saying we're perfect. We're not, because I can actually feed you more information on that. But do you think this is by mistake? No, it's by design. You have the party number one. Every country, every company in China who has over, I think it's 100 workers, must have a government representative of equal status within the company. What Western CEO is the boss, CEO, whatever, of a Chinese company in China? Zero. Don't talk about departments. TikTok is a good example of this. Or maybe I should use the past tense. We don't know yet. We have to think about this. How about just add even more to top it off? Many people in the mainland CCP government they're bright people, man. They're smart people. They're very bright people. And they deserve respect. Many of their children are Western educated, sent overseas to study and learn. They are lucky and they had access to certain resources. Now, if you're a Westerner living in North America and you see so-called this Chinese guy, smart, privileged, and has all these resources, you better think. You don't know, you may not know where they come from, and they may not be able to tell you. Not that they want to. They may learn something from you, pick up some of your habits, but they may not be able to apply it to when they get back home, if they go back. But many of these government leaders or people who run the government in China have children educated in the West. And when they come back to China, and don't be surprised, many of them do return because they're already in a privileged position. They know more about Western nations than people in Western nations know about China. Think about it. Another thing to think about is, if you are a Chinese student and you want to join the CCP, you have to be the best in your class. I'm not talking about the top 5. I mean, the top 10. Nah, there's no such thing as, when they change your scores in the West to, they call those, I forgot what they call it. Like they take the class average and they pick a passing number to depict the passing grade. They don't have that in China. If you are a Chinese student, 当然我学，因为我学的，我懂得很深吧。你要我开另外一个频道用中文而已嘛，或者是英文可以嘛？如果你有问题沟通，你跟我讲。Of course, I know what I'm talking about. I won't be wasting my time here. I'll just keep it to myself. But let me continue. You have to be the best in your class to be able to get into the party after graduating. These people are smart. These people are smart at CCP, well educated. They know more about us. How? Okay. They're smart. They send their kids overseas to be educated in our system, right? Our system most likely see overseas Chinese students as moneymakers. It's true. That's why a lot of Western institutions still want to keep a door open to Chinese students so they can still make that income. Because universities in the West now has become more like a corporation than a place to really build and nurture knowledge. But let me continue. So here we go. So because China is well diverse in the thinking of the West, they are able to outthink us. If I look at my current government in the States, I'm saddened. I really am. Now, this has nothing to do with language, and it has a lot of cases to do with humility. Yes, United States is a great place. We're not perfect, and a perfect place does not exist. But there are certain elements, whether you want to call it my English is getting bad. Meritocracy, catocracy, this type of things is infiltrated within the US government, where financial power, prowess is running wildly unhinged. Well, in the United States, if you want to get something done, we have to go through so many different steps. You know, you have to go through this department. To get one thing done will take 5 years. But in China, good or bad, they can get things done like that. Yes, we have laws in the state that protects people's rights, generally supposed to, or protect the environment, which I do want to protect the environment. But China is able to jump on something, get something built, even if it means moving people out of a neighborhood or moving around someone's house or putting a river to the left and right side of someone's apartment who doesn't want to move. We got to find out what's the best thing to do, especially in the West. And sorry to say that the West has dug its own hole. And it's not all China's fault. Well, do I sound pro CCP? No, I'm pro truth. And my mouth has been running on here for a while, and only 3 people watching, so maybe I'm boring people right now. And also, if you're connecting to me in the West, from the West, it's like almost 5 o'clock in the morning if you're on the East Coast of the United States. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And if you have anything you would like me to answer up, please type it in below, English or Chinese. 我的简体字不是很好啦，我可以读啊，但是我打的就是繁体字。I might simplify Chinese. I can read it, but I'm not going to type. I'm going to type 正体字. I'll type in the complicated characters. Oh, you're on the West Coast. Well, California, what time is it? Oh, it's 1 a.m. Okay, it's not too. Earl, what's the best time for me to stream for you to watch? Okay, what's the best time for me to stream for you to watch? About 2 hours earlier. 红尘呢？你在哪里？ Tell me where you are. 9 p.m. 10 p.m. Okay. Are you in California, Earl?哦，了解，你就台湾很久，你觉得什么时候比较方便直播？你可以跟我讲好不好？因为美国那边说，如果是台湾，我应该是台湾12点 直播。Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, I see. Okay, if you're in Taiwan, 12点可以吗？12点。Okay, Earl, I'll announce my next live stream on my channel, and I'll do it next week. 然后下次的直播我会先在我的频道宣布一下。Okay, hold on a second. Let me double check something here. OK，陈诚，12点，你觉得是12点？哦，了解。OK，陈诚呢，我下次的直播我会下礼拜这个时候，应该说我们台湾的时间12点直播，好不好？So I'll do my next live stream maybe same time next week, but maybe 2 to 3 hours earlier. It'll probably be about 12 o'clock here Taiwan time, but I will announce it first. Okay, is that cool with everybody? If say everything is cool, just say goodbye, 再见, and I'll talk to you guys later. And also, if there's something you would like me to talk about, leave a message below. 如果你有一个题目你喜欢我可以讲有关于我这个外国人的看法，你在下面写，然后我会聊一下。晚安 OK, Earl, 晚安 So let me know. 神城，哦，神城，哈哈，这个不是城吗？简体字不是你这样子写，不是城？我等一下查 ，OK？ 神城，东靶区 ，OK，OK。I see you later, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to take the time out of your day to do this rant. Let me know, what I can talk about. If you can, like this thing and tell people. People back home need to know about it. And I am one of these. There's very few people that have the knowledge I know who are from the United States who understand this much about China because I spent over 40 years studying this. And I will talk about how United States meritocracy has forced it to become blind to China just to build up their economic promise. Everybody else, take care, everybody. Help me spread the word that people are all the same but different. We are 4 C's, one family. 是啊，一家. Later, everybody. Peace.